I don't even know if I knew what the word was, to be honest with you.
Well, most people only ever sell one business, don't they? So they just, we'll put that off one day because it's not a pain. If we're talking, problems and solutions, it's not a pain I've got today. But the pain they're going to face if they don't prepare is that only 1 in 5 businesses actually sell. So that's a real smack in the face when it comes.
Are you tired of working more for less profits in your home service business? What if I could show you $100,000 in hidden annual profits in your business in less than 3 minutes? Would you be interested? And not only show you where, but how to create that 100K in 6 months or less without additional advertising or marketing spend guaranteed. Just go to sharpenthespearcoaching.com to see how truly simple it is. That's sharpenthespearcoaching.com. Do it now. And we are back on STS Sharpen the Spear podcast with another incredible guest. I've got Daryl Bates-Brownsword with us, and I've had the distinct privilege to already be on his podcast, which was a blast. We had a really good time, hit some great stuff, but today it's Daryl's turn. So I get to rock this mic here, listen, enjoy, prompt, do the usual things. But Daryl, as we always do on STS, no one knows Daryl better than Daryl. So Daryl, little backstory, bring us up to speed, and let's get into the conversation.
Oh, well, thanks, Richard. And it's a really cruel thing to do in some respects, isn't it? Get someone to talk about themselves because we all love talking about ourselves, but we hate talking about ourselves. So let's have a crack at this. My background is, and this is important, I'm a mechanical engineer, not for the sake of being an engineer, but it gives you some insight as to how I think. Problem solver, methodical, logical, sequential, and probably a little bit risk adverse to some extent. But having said that, I was a crap mechanical engineer. I worked in the energy industry for a number of years, saw the consultants come in as we went privatized. And I was doing my MBA at the time just to study business and learn business as my tool to get me out of engineering. And I got involved in consulting. This is 2000. Started working with consultants, the typical, big city type consultants. And that wasn't much fun. It was just, it was super competitive and, just doing the same thing day in, day out. And as I was doing my marketing studies, I said, we should be targeting the SMEs of the world, the owner-managed businesses, because all the stuff we take for granted and the modeling work that we can introduce these guys to will be new to them. They said, look, it'll never work. You can't charge SMEs, proper fees. I was, 30, so still young and dumb. And I said, looked at my wife and I said, well, I don't want to die wondering. Let's have a crack at this. I said, give me a year. If I can't make it work in a year, I'll go get a real job. And I haven't worked a real job since. There's a background. What do? I help business owners now change their mindset from, revenue and profit growth to focusing on the valuation growth. Because if you're looking at your business from a valuation lens, day in, day out, your business is going to be exit ready and you'll be able to maximize the valuation and then exit on your terms. So that's what it's all about for me, helping business owners be one of the 20% of business owners that actually get to exit on their terms.
Yeah, that's great, Daryl. I really like this, this viewpoint. We've talked about exit strategy, things like that. We get that. I talk about in a high view. That, what you just said, okay, putting the focus on valuation, way different way to look at your business. I talk to a lot of business owners. I coach a lot of business owners. That's not even in the stratosphere of thought.
No.
Okay,
no,
they're truly not. So that's why I love this. So tell us more.
Well, look, I guess I started thinking about it when I started doing a lot of work with CFOs, and they taught me a shed load. Like CFOs are bright, focused people, really at the sharp end of the business, work on the strategy, really helping you control the numbers and transforming your back end accounting system into a finance function for your business. These guys know their stuff. And it just really forced me to think about the financials in that different perspective, because when you start to think about how a business is valued. And what I want business owners to do is understand how a buyer is going to be looking at their business. Instead of just waiting to when they're going to sell their business, if they understand how a buyer is going to buy their business early on, they can start preparing and be on the front foot. And the byproduct, or the added advantage is probably a better way of putting that, is then if you get an offer out of the blue, you don't have any prep work to do because you're on the front foot. So what are we doing? The CFOs taught me that, hey, get control of your numbers and be on the front foot, and you should always think in profit. And profit's great. You need profit and cash flow to have a sustainable business. And then I started looking and go, but how is a business valued? Business is valued with a combination of profit. Great, you need profit and you can increase your valuation by increasing your profit. But also there's a multiplier of that profit. And the multiplier is just a representation of how risky it is to buy your business. A buyer's going, hey, look, I'll buy this business, but what am I looking at? I'm assessing how risky it is. And what is the risk? The risk is the risk of the pattern of growth continuing with new ownership. So if business owners understand that, they go, okay, what do I need to do to de-risk my business? Which means, how do I get any of the shareholders out of the day-to-day operations, having to touch it on a daily basis? Sure, they can be involved in strategy, but we want them out of the operational stuff. And as soon as they do that, or not, it's moving a long way to removing a lot of the big risks. So what can I do to get myself out of there? And then I'm looking at, how do I increase the multiple? Because if I have a look in all industries, there's always a multiple range. Most business owners think there's just a standard multiple for my industry. There might be an average, but they've always got examples of why one business sold for a higher multiple. So let's start thinking about that. What were the conditions? Some of them are environmental, that are outside of your control, but most of them are inside your control. So if you start thinking about it, you can impact it, and you put the cards in your favor.
Yeah, I really, obviously we're very aligned on this, okay, because we've talked before and everything else. And I think, but bringing it to this level for me, okay, because so many owners that I work with, they're kind of stuck on that hamster wheel, right? They're kind of doing the same thing. Like you said, they're in the day-to-days and all that stuff. And it's that pulling them out. And we've talked about, I try to get them to focus on their 5%. That's that strategy. That's the vision, right? That's growth, stuff like that. When you can put your energy into that, again, if you've removed yourself from the day-to-day, just like you said, I'm just kind of reemphasizing, you've eliminated a risk. You're the risk. You're the owner. You're the risk. Okay. No one wants to buy you. Okay. So the more you're not involved in the operations of this machine, if you will, right? That's what matters, right? Now you get that, because I always use the example, when someone wants to buy my business, we negotiate the price, they hand me a check, I shake their hand, I'm out, they're in, nobody knows the business sold. That's like the goal, right?
That's the ideal. Absolutely.
Right. The ideal. But I want to be that person if I'm buying one. I don't want to come in and reinvent the wheel here. I'm looking for market share. It could be similar to a business I have, but it's run better, or it's equally run well, right? Or I want to get into a new business that's run well so I can grow it and not fix it. I'm not a fixer-upper, okay? I don't want to flip a business.
You can leverage it, and you can go, their product is going to go great through my other businesses, or,
right.
I already do the same as them, but they've got access to a marketplace that I just don't have. It's just going to be seamless to just extend through them.
Yeah. So let me ask you then, kind of, this is a little bit of a pivot, but talking about that, like, I know you don't do like actually the business broker thing, but like you're building a business or you're helping someone, coaching them, focused on valuation. Do they get to the point where they actually start looking like who would be that match? What would be the combination? It may go both ways too. They may actually buy that company, or they want to sell to them, right? It could go either way, because it could be like, hey, this might be better if I buy them, So I just wonder if these guys are having that kind of visionary capability, or are they still kind of focused on growing the business?
So my, I guess, strength is strategy. I love doing strategy and going, there's the profit and the multiple. Yeah, when it comes to working on the profit stuff, I get the CFO in. That's not my expertise. I love working on the stuff that can increase your multiple. So what's going to increase your multiple? We go, okay, well, let's understand your business. A business opportunity, or a viable business, is one of two areas. Either I've got a new product, a new solution to a problem that's out there in the marketplace, and a lot of people have this problem, and you've identified a new way to fix that problem for a marketplace, or you've identified a new way to get to the market. You've identified a new distribution or route to market, or whatever you want to call it, with an existing product. So you've got a product and a route to market. If you've got both of those things, then you've got a business opportunity. So they're the first two areas that you can start to look about, strategically and go, okay, what other routes to market are there? We've got a great product or a great solution or problem solution. Who else needs that? If it works for this marketplace, contextually, can I just change it to work for that marketplace or that industry? Who else has this problem? So these are the areas that we look at strategically, and you can have a massive impact on a business valuation by just doing some thinking about at the highest level of your product or your routes to market, and you can have a big impact. Now, sometimes that could be, well, actually to get the valuation or to get the leverage or opportunities that you're looking to achieve, and your goals for this business, maybe it requires buying another business, because that's going to be a whole lot quicker than building up from scratch. Right. And because you've done the work and we've been looking at your business strategically and analyzing the valuation of your business, you're now really well prepared to do that to another business. And you can have a look and assess the opportunity that you've got by whether you acquire them and how much you might like to pay for them.
Yeah, I love that. I think one of the great things in business is, and as an owner, you kind of have to train yourself to do this, is kind of head on a swivel. Like you got to be looking for other opportunities, right? Now, a lot of opportunities can be distractions.
True.
Okay. But
there's no shortage of opportunities.
Right. Right. So
case.
I think with what you do, Daryl, with the focus on the valuation, you're looking for increased valuation to purchase. Okay. Big difference than looking at an opportunity that looks like it'll be more profit. I think you make a great distinction there, right? Like we get that.
Yeah. Like profit, if I work on the profit, I can do that in 6 to 12 months. Or when I say I mean those CFO wonderful people that we're talking about. You can tidy up the financials, you can clean up the balance sheet and the P&L, and you can maybe adjust your pricing, and you can go through your client base and get rid of the simple things that you can fix up and make a difference. But you're going to improve your profit by 5 or 10%, and once it's done, it's done. And as long as you apply the principles that you've learned, you'll always have that. But once it's done, it's done. Great. You need to do that. And so it's not an or strategy. It's an and strategy. Let me work on the profit improvement and let me improve my multiplier. And to make this simple, we're talking about building the intangibles of your business. The classic working on your business, not in your business. Fix the profit, you're working in your business, or you're getting someone else to work in all the bits and pieces. Working on your business now, these are the things where you're building intangible assets. So it's going to take a while to build them and get them up to speed, whether we're talking systems or branding or new opportunities in growth and what have you, or with product or routes to market. These are going to take 6 to 12 months to build. Now, once you've built them, I call it you're working ahead of your business. You're working ahead of your business by 6 to 12 months when you're working on it. So you do that, you take 6 to 12 months, you do it, then you introduce it to your business, and then it hits your bottom line. Then you need another year to demonstrate that it wasn't just lucky, right? So that the strategy works. So that's why I go, look, you really got to allow yourself 2 or 3 years if you want this to really get the most out of your exit planning. The thing is, once you get business owners working in that mindset, they go, hang on, I'm out of the business now. I'm working on the business. This is really good fun, this strategy stuff, isn't it? This big picture stuff. I'm really getting my jollies here. That plan of selling the business in 3 years, don't worry about that. I've got a new job now. This is so much more fun. I'm a business owner rather than in the business. And they're having a blast. They've fallen back in love with what they first started. They'll just put it off. And, but they're in a chairman role or chair role rather than just, a CEO type of role. And, they're really adding value to their business at that strategic valuation level.
Yeah, you're right. I think not just me right now, you get that when you talked about that, you kind of get maybe the hair stood up a little bit on the arms, you get kind of excited because I think we all really think about it. That's where we want to be. Okay. Yeah. We don't want to be the CEO. I like you chairman, right? Or founder, that word. Okay. Like get that part where you start enjoying it again. I think that's a key thing that because we do love what we do. Okay. We love what we produce, what we've grown and built. Right. But then there's more. and more in a good way, not in like, hey, I can just go, I don't need to be Amazon or something, but like I can add these arms to the business. Like you're saying, that increases not just the valuation, but like I get to work on that business too. Yeah. Right. So you stay in the on position, which I love.
Yeah. And it's not more of the same. It's more variety. It's more bigger pictures. It's more opportunities. It's more analysis. It's more strategy. It's more fulfillment.
Yeah. And and that's what it's really about, right? And when it comes down to it, Brad, like when I started my first business, it was to, well, make more than I was making working for someone. That literally was my thing. I discovered by chance a way to make like 10 times what I was making just in one day. Then to make it a whole week, right? So I'm like, or more than a week, in a month. And that launched me into, I'm like, well, it's an income generator. That's in my, when I'm young, coming out of the Marine Corps, I'm like, it's an income generator. Oh, look, I'll make more. It's an economic engine. I can put horsepower in this and I can make more money in it. That drove me for a long time. I wasn't thinking about, because I'm an all or nothing guy. So I'll just do this forever. Okay. That's young and dumb. When you think like that, Daryl, like, I'm going to do this forever. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Okay. But it went through my iterations, everything else, and hummed along and all that. But it really was, I never had this focus, like my first 20 years till I lost everything, right? I never had the valuation focus ever. I don't even know if I knew what the word was, to be honest with you.
Well, most people only ever sell one business, don't they? So they just, we'll put that off one day because it's not a pain. If we're talking, problems and solutions, it's not a pain I've got today. But the pain they're going to face if they don't prepare is that only 1 in 5 businesses actually sell. So that's a real smack in the face when it comes. But if you prepare, every business owner thinks they're going to be the 1 in 5.
Yeah, it's, you know what else, and we could talk about this a bit too. I think what people don't understand, and this is only with age comes wisdom. Okay, so I've been around a lot, right? 35 years. Yeah, hopefully. Well, I have a little bit. So I got some. So I'm still in the plus column. But I'm here going, I just told you I thought when I was 21. Okay, yeah. Now I am not 21. Okay, I'm much older. Got time in the game, and I'm going, you never know when you're going to have to sell. That's the other part of the equation. And if you're building it with this kind of thought process, valuation, exit, things like that, even when you're forced to sell, and hopefully that you never come to that, instead of getting 20 cents on the dollar, you're going to get 50 or 60. It could be an economic thing or whatever, but you're in a better position. Even you'll get the highest low number you can. Yeah. I guess is the way to say it, right?
Absolutely. And sometimes there's that reactive strategy, but there is a positive reactive strategy. And that's, a lot of business owners go, look, I want to build my business to the sides where I get noticed and someone comes to us. Well, that's fantastic. You might get an unsolicited offer, but that's good and it's flattering for the ego. But at some point, they're going to want to have a look and have a look behind the covers of your business. And if they see that it's all smoke and mirrors and it's down to you grafting and hustling every single day and working your tail off for 100 hours a week, they go, well, yeah, that's going to evaporate as soon as I take the business owner out. So what looks like a nice seductive offer up front, they just move on. And then I've spoken to business owners over the years, and they go, oh, yeah, we got a good business. We've had a lot of people come and make offers. And I go, yeah, but none of them have gone forward. Oh, yeah, well, it's just not the right time for them. And I go, well, people are polite. They're not going to go, hey, look, we looked at your business and we looked behind the covers and it was just a dog's breakfast. It was just too big a mess for us. So we didn't proceed with it. No one's going to tell you that. They're just going to take the easy option, not offend you, and just move on and say the board didn't approve it or it's not the right time. Wake up. It was risky as hell for them, so they ran. And your valuation was way too high for what was realistic. Just, hello.
You know what? And I think, and again, without a specific plan, a program, a method to do this, right? We're talking about, I guarantee you, every business owner that doesn't have all those things totally overvalues their business. Okay. What they think is it's crazy. Like I hear like you have nothing but a bunch of depreciating assets and you work 90 hours a week. I go, what are you selling? A customer list? Yeah. You're not getting multiple 7 figures for a customer list. Okay. It's not happening.
Because I can figure out who your customers are and go and approach them directly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So most business owners are fairly comfortable and healthy self-esteem, shall we say. They've got, without getting an independent valuation, they compare to their mate down the pub, and he sold his business for 7 times or whatever the number is. They just hear 7 times, and my business is better than his, so I should get 10 for mine, or at least 7. What they don't know is that, it's the adjusted, profit EBITDA number that's used. And they go, why did that get 7? Well, they've got no idea. They just think he got lucky and their business is better. Why? Because my ego is bigger and therefore my business is worth more. And you just go, let's get an independent valuation. Get a valuation by someone who doesn't have any attachment to actually selling your business for you, because they've got a vested interest, and get something independent and just get some realistic parameters, ballpark figures for how a buyer will value your business, and what the realistic magnitude of that is. That'll just doing that valuation will help you prepare and take you a long way.
And I think that's an excellent investment.
Yeah.
Pay that third party. They don't give a crap how long you worked in the beginning or today or how many, they don't care. I need a guy looking at the numbers. Give me this, and give me that painful truth. Okay, so I can start correcting things.
They don't care what you think the business owes you. They don't care what blood, sweat, equity you think you've got invested in your business. They're just having a look at a realistic return on investment. They don't care what your ambitious number is or how much you think you need to retire and live the same lifestyle for however long. They don't care what you think. They'll give you a realistic number, and I hope you're sitting down when you get it, because you ain't going to like it.
I remember I dealt with some business owners that literally their mode of operation, like they're out doing an estimate, right, to do some service work or whatever, and they're literally bidding. The estimate comes out to what they need Friday. Yeah. Okay, how much they need? They're like basing the deposit. Okay, and they're running their whole business this way. It's like, well, I'll get another estimate. I'll go, well, I need $3,000 by Friday to pay the taxes from last. And then they're literally like bidding that to get that. They'll bid 6, I get 50. Okay. You know what I mean? So I'm just using that as a almost in the absurd, but it's a lot of it's reality. So well, that's what I mean. And then they still think their business is worth a lot, and they're operating that way. Again,
hand to mouth, short-term focus, scary stuff.
Yeah, it's wow. Yeah, I've seen it so much. That's why I wrote my book, and I started leaning, and we were talking before we came on air about someone, and I'm like, it's patterns, right? We start seeing these patterns in all these businesses. I tell them they're doing, well, we have this new saying. I go, well, they're going to be perfect for me as a coach. They're doing all the wrong things. I can fix this in a piece. This would be a piece of cake, right? Because they all kind of keep doing that. It's just the nature of certain business, not all businesses, obviously, but a lot of them, especially in the service and trades industry, it tends to be that way, right? You have a technician, craftsman, they get into the work and they do great work and they understand that, but then they don't know the business side and they never get the transition to the business side, like you're talking about, right? They never get to go to the on part. They're always in, and they will do this for decades.
But they're really good at it.
Right. Yeah. So they tell me, and I'm sure no one else is as good as them. Right. So it's just that kind of, it's a mix, because I did it. Right. So I had a mix of the ego and the pride. Right. And you're doing all this stuff. And even if you're producing, like you're doing multiple 7 figures. Okay. And you're like doing it, you're doing all this stuff. And it's like impressive from the outside. My revenue numbers, he's doing $3 million. He's only got 4 people working for him. Well, because he's doing the work of 5.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But right. So he's doing all this, and you're like, it looks so obviously, but he disappears. There's nothing. The door never gets opened again. That business can be done in one evening.
I was talking to a guy, a couple of months back, and he was in the same situation. He's doing like £3 million revenue. And he's gone, I want to get it valued and I want to sell it. And I've gone, well, tell me about who else is in your business. Well, it's just me. And I've got these 2 graduates who are, my succession plan. I've gone, how long have they been with you? And he said, one's 3 months, the other's 6 months now. And you want them to take over the business. This is their first job. They might be bright students with PhDs or whatever, but it's their first job. They know nothing how to run your business. You may have taught them, but they've got no experience. There's no way your business is worth what you think it is. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of that, that cold splash of water in your face. You know what I mean? You got to, but I'll tell you, like what we're talking about, Daryl, like you need to have that conversation sooner than later.
Yeah.
Like today, yesterday kind of mentality. You really need to get that because you can see just from what we've talked about already, how it'll straighten out your course and how you're doing business. Like you said, there's a lot of internal work, intangible things, stuff like that, right? 6 months, 12 months, but man, that opens the gates.
Yeah.
To really creating value in your business that someone would actually want to acquire.
And the thing is, once you've done that, you've set your business up and you've built the foundation that you can build lots of other stuff on. Because if you've built systems and training frameworks and capacity, and you know how to scale it, all you got to do is tweak the levers and just go, well, more prospects I get, more people I can train up to deliver to it. And my back office and my operations are systemized. So I'm not prone to making mistakes every time I do something because everyone's trained in doing it the same way and can fill in for each other and can help each other. And it just becomes easier. It's like a Swiss watch.
Yeah, and the other side of that is we talked about, people wanting to come in with a business running itself. But when you know how to do this, there's another benefit. Now you can go to these businesses that don't have all that, but they have a good customer list. They do great work, right? They don't have the system edge, the process. They don't have the valuation focus. You can pick up that for a song and you can flip that. You can turn it into, because you know how to do it now.
Yeah.
So over 6 months, 12 months, you have this viable new entity that can, that's getting serious ROI because of what you were able to purchase.
It looks really good on paper, but the things to be careful of for things like that is that the owners are working big hours and they're stressed. So they want to get out. They'll give it away. They'll do whatever they can to get out. Great. But then you've got, the culture in that business is that they've been working for a stressed and frustrated boss for a while. So they're a bit stressed and frustrated. There's not a lot of fun. There's probably been some high staff turnover because no one likes to work for a frustrated boss. So integrating a business like that, whilst on paper, if you've just done the paper analysis, dead easy, looks fantastic, all upside. Businesses are run on people and culture. So integrating the culture into your business, you want to make sure that it's not going to overwhelm your existing culture and it takes a lot of focus on effort on bringing it in. Once you've done it, fantastic. You'll realize all those opportunities that you saw on paper.
Yeah, that's good insight. Really, really good insight. Because I think just you mentioned in the culture aspect, especially if they're going to be coming together, or I guess staying separate. You go into something, and I've had some personal experience in the last day or so with this, with my son working for a company that is just a disaster. And I'm like, I'm glad you've been there for 2 years. Now you know how not to run a business. So, but it's just that it's a culture. That culture is just okay with you there.
As young people, when we were young as well, you need to see the downside or the negative, the terribly run things, so you appreciate the well-run stuff. If you've only ever been in a good business, you don't appreciate how good you've got it and how wonderful it is and how much it impacts your life. If you're in a crappy business, with a terrible culture and a boss that is just terrible to work with, it's frustrating and you don't need that in your life.
Yeah, because I told my kids, like, you're all getting, they've all worked since they were like, well, my one son started like 9. The kid just wants to work all the time and make money. God love him. Okay, so he's never going to starve. I don't have to worry about him, right? But by all my kids, it's like you need to go work and to experience work. Good company, fast food. Go see a systems-based business and see how crappy it can still be because people are more important. Okay, you got the systems, but you can't get the people to work in the systems. Or you got the crazy managers and all that, right? Experiences. Go to a well-run place. And now they get a job there and you get to see the differences, You don't get to come work for dad. Okay, you're going to go work there. And then once you understand, you'll have a higher appreciation of what goes on here, if that happens to be the case.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. I think like when I try to, again, I'll go back to my kids, just, I don't want them just working. Like here, you're working the drive-through or you're doing whatever, or you're working hardware or whatever you're doing. I'm like, think about what's going on in this business. Go ask other questions about other things. Matter of fact, one thing I started doing with my clients, like I have a manufacturing one, like the employees, there's, 9, 12 different positions, right? You got 45 people working there. Every week they go 2 hours into another portion of the company. It might be sales. It might be front desk, and they learn it in that company. It's just 2 hours a week. That's set aside. They go there on like a Friday and they kind of finish their day. Because once everybody knows, it kind of ties in the culture too, like two things. First, they know like what other people are actually doing here. They know everything that goes on to run this business, to get this stuff out the door and to the customer. But they also go, I think I really like sales. I think I need to get out of here and move over to sales. And it becomes a whole new career for them, if you will, and an upside to them because now they know it actually exists. Yep, right. So there's cool stuff like that from their learning experience, because, we homeschool our kids. So we're very hands-on and, it's like critical thinking and working and, really understanding how things go. That process is going to eventually, they may be a business owner or they may know where to work, which could be more important. They know the right companies to work for.
I reckon there's another benefit as well, Richard, and that is they're no longer making assumptions around if you're in a process, upstream or downstream. You're no longer making assumptions about what the people upstream are doing before they send the stuff to you and being critical, because if you've worked in that role, you go, look, maybe they didn't get the right information, or maybe they got stuck because I've been there. I understand how chaotic it is and what some of the glitches are. So instead of being judgy and critical, you can have some empathy and understanding their role and what they may be experiencing and what caused the problem or what caused you not to get all the information that you were expecting. And the same, you can have empathy and understanding of what the people downstream need from you before you hand your job on to them, so that you can help the overall process become more efficient.
Yeah, those are great points. And it again goes back to a culture in a company. Are you an owner who understands that? Yeah. What you just said, what I'm talking about. Do you understand that? Do you put a process in place? So every new hire is going to be going through, you got 12, over the next few months, as part of their qualifications, actually, to be advanced, is have to know how all this, you don't just, go the fast track, right? You got to do this kind of stuff. So I really like that. And I love when I introduce it to clients, it's funny how it's not thought of. I think we all get so tunnel visioned, right?
Yeah, and we assume so much, don't we? Like, just everyday human behavior is to make assumptions based on our past experiences. And, when we don't know something, we make it up. And we don't make up the best case scenario. We always make up the worst case scenario. So, we've got that going on, and fear and concerns and anxiety and everything else going through our own heads, which just affect and influence the way we look out on other people's roles and what they're doing. So I really like the idea of going, well, here's our way of doing things, and let's create a standard process for how we do this task. Now, it's a standard process, which just means it's right for 80 or 90% of the time. Yes, there's going to be 10% of the time where it doesn't quite fit, and you're going to have to think on your feet and adapt. But we've trained you in the process. You've had the upstream, you've had the downstream, you know what's going on, you know what we're trying to achieve and what the end objective is. You're now fully informed to make a good choice. So think on your feet, be creative, do what you need to do to get the job done. But yeah, there are exceptions to the rule. The standard process is just the rule. There are exceptions, and that's okay. You're in the job, you're trained, you're experienced, you're qualified, you're capable of making those adaptations. And in a good culture and a good work environment, we're going to trust you to do that. So
I'm with you there, because it's we're all problem solving. I don't care what your job is, right? But if you train that, if you teach that, like you just described, you're going to have this 10%. You might have to figure it out. Okay, like one of my clients, the saw broke. So you know what everyone does? They sit down, they look at the saw, like stare at it and not knowing what to do. Okay, for 30 minutes. And then they go knock on the owner's door and they say, hey, the saw's broken. And I'm like, okay, well, we can fix this in about 5 minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
When you go out, what do you do? And he goes, well, I do this, this, this. I got to call this number and do this. I go, okay, do you write all that down? Laminate it and stick it to the saw. Okay. And say, you see all this? When this saw breaks, you do all of this before you dare come to my door.
Exactly.
Okay. Because this will be fixed. Okay.
Train,
So
and you got to
things
train
like that,
them.
but yeah.
You got to make sure that who uses the saw understands that this process exists for when the saw breaks down. You got to make sure that they were involved in the training so that they understand how to do it and that that's the best process. They need to know how to find it. Yeah. But because I've seen another company that goes, they just document everything and they put it in the filing system and they don't make sure everyone reads it, understands it, learns it. And they go, but it's written there. They should know. Well, they're curious people. They should find it.
Right. Yeah. Right. Okay. Like happens. Like you make these assumptions, and I always use this saying. I always say, in training, there's no room for assumptions. Okay, we're training. I'm not making any assumptions here. Okay, I got to go, bottom level, and we're going to walk you up through it. Now, granted, if you're on day 4, I'm assuming you learned on day 1. I get that. Like we're stacking this stuff, but in general, with that, to think people are self-starters, that's a fantasy.
Yeah.
Okay, you got like you and maybe one person out of 50 who's that, and you're the owner. You may get one of them who's a self-starter. So we need to understand that.
There's a common frustration amongst the business owners is, why don't my employees think and act like me? Well, they're not business owners. Well, how do I get them to think and act and behave like business owners? Well, I don't know. How about you make them business owners? What? Well, you've got employee stock option plans in the US and similar structures over here. You don't have to give them a lot, but you need to help them understand how the business process works from end to end, like we were just talking about. You need to educate them as to how the business makes money and where the money goes in the business so that they're aware of how the business works, because they can't think like a business owner until they understand how the business works. And then instead of going, well, you're in sales, you're rewarded for this, and you're in operations and you're rewarded to this, we've got to create some sort of system where we're all incentivized by the same goal and the same outcome. Otherwise, we're pulling against each other. Now, the only goal and outcome that we're all incentivized by is profit, or valuation, if you like, but that's a bit too abstract at this level. But if we can do things that and we know how the business works, we'll know how my job specifically can have an impact on the profitability. And I can make decisions when I'm put in that situation to make choices that will make the business more money. And if I'm a shareholder or even a partial shareholder of the business, then I'm aligned to that and we all win with that.
Yeah, I think that's, incentive is, it can be a tricky thing in businesses. I've seen it go a lot of different ways. Shareholding is a good incentive, right? But then you got to back it up with the process you just described, right?
Yeah.
They have to be trained. They have to understand. They have to know all aspects of the business. Because again, they're just going to be complainers. And if they're not, they're going to feel like they're being cheated because so-and-so is not doing his job. And the guy in front of them is not doing his job. And, I'm the only one who's good and all that nonsense.
And they've got to be empowered and they've got to be able to make decisions and they've got to be able to go, we need to make this better. Here's how we can make it better. You can't just go, well, now you're a shareholder and I expect a change. You got to educate the change that you're expecting.
And I think as business owners, you have to have this expectation of yourself that that's your responsibility. Like This is it's not really a delegated thing. You're the captain of that ship. Like you set the precedent. Here's what we're going to do. This is how it's going to work. This is how they're going to be incentivized. And again, maybe it's not shares. Maybe there's different incentivized, plans in this thing because everyone wants recognition. Okay. They want purpose, recognition, and quality pay, right? But the recognition comes in all different shapes and sizes. And it can be individual, department individual, or whatever in different ways because different people react different ways to different incentives. Right. So it's not one size fits all.
Yeah. And we're talking about structures now because it's easy to talk about processes and go, look, we need a process. Our business needs to be process driven and systemized and systemized is great because that increases the valuation of your business. Absolutely fantastic. Before you can get systems, we need structures. And structures is just the framework, accountability charts, org charts, whatever you want to call them. But it's a framework that you have in your business so that everyone knows exactly what's expected of them. What's the scope and extent of my role? What do I do? Now, if I fully understand what I do and what I have to do when I encounter a problem that's outside of what do? Do I take it to Richard? Do I take it to Tom? Do I take it to Annie? Who do I take it to when it's outside of my role, and what's my process for doing that? Then I've got a structure and I know what I'm responsible for and what I'm going to be held accountable for. And then within that, the task that I've got, I need to follow the process for those tasks and what are the rules that we talked about earlier, and what can I do when there are exceptions to those rules. So we need structures and systems to make the business efficient and effective to increase the valuation. Otherwise, if we've just got some of these free-for-all structures, everyone goes through the owner, it becomes a bottleneck. The business is highly dependent on them in that case because they've got to ask the owner how to make a decision every single time. Yeah, it's great for the owner's ego and their control freakishness, but it's an absolute bottleneck and a limiter for the business. And it's a killer for the valuation side of things and the exitability, if there is such a word.
Yeah, I think a common theme lately on my podcast has been the biggest problem in every business is the owner.
Well,
You're your biggest bottleneck, right? It's almost common sense, but at the same time, if you're in it, it's not. Well, I'm not the problem. No, you're the problem.
Well, when business owners say to me, look, this would be a really good business if I could only find good employees. You just can't find good help nowadays. And I said, that's because they're all looking for good leaders. And they go,
right.
What do you mean?
Love it.
Well,
I love it.
They left you because you're a terrible leader. They didn't like working for you. Blah, 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 blah. That's because they don't do a good job. Yeah, because you micromanage. You interfere. You take away any joy, any satisfaction out of doing the job by micromanaging. And you're frustrated. No one, they're employees. They can leave. You can't.
And they'll tell you they're leaving because someone's going to pay them more, which is probably a lie.
They'll never tell you the truth.
They'll say, "Oh, well, they pay me more." And so you're thinking you lose them because everyone wants too much money. Because on the flip side, I help companies when we get the vision, we get that culture right. People will take a pay cut to come work for your company. Yeah. That's the reality. I'm not saying they should or what, but when someone will do that because they want to be in that atmosphere, you're doing stuff right.
Look, if you treat your employees like a commodity, they'll treat you like a commodity. If it's just the employment relationship is transactional, they'll go, well, I'll show up, I'll do my 8 hours, I'll do whatever I'm told for 8 hours, and I'll take my pay. And if I can get more pay, and I'll get more pay for doing this, and we'll trade, I'll do these more skills for more pay. Yeah, it's transactional. And then once I've got everything they can from you and there's nothing left to get, they'll go, okay, well, thanks. My time here is over. This person's offering me a cent an hour more. I'll take that because it's purely transactional. They're not invested in it because you didn't invest in them. That's where the culture comes in. And if you've got a relationship-based business as opposed to a transactional business, that's when you get people going, I love Monday mornings. I love going to work. We get on well together. We feel so productive. We get shit done every week. And, we all chip in when there's a problem. We brainstorm it. We figure it out together. How satisfying is that? The customers love us because, it all worked. The boss says, thank you. We love rocking up to work. It's a different environment. Now, you'll get longevity in that state. Longevity is not always good, but it's not a bad thing if you've got them for the right reasons and a good culture.
Yeah, I think a lot of people aren't really understanding that aspect on the whole, and they don't really get, well, how do you do that? Right? A lot of times you just explained a number of ways we've talked about actually throughout this whole thing, really. I mean, if you take everything we've talked about so far, you go, that would change your culture. If you did all this stuff, right? You'd have a pretty well-run machine there. But I think a lot of times people go, well, what am I supposed to do? Be their best friend? Are they supposed to invite them over to the house and all this kind of stuff? It's like, no, it's not. See, again, you're not understanding leadership, for one. Great leaders make more leaders.
Yeah.
Like you said, when people want to achieve, they want to do satisfying work, they want to do good work, right? They want to have happy customers. They want to see that what they made a difference in someone's life, not just profited the bottom line, right? So there's these things, and you talked about this earlier, Daryl, when they have to understand how the company makes money, where the money goes, what they do with it. It doesn't have to be this secret. I don't mean you have here, come look at my books every week. What I'm saying is like, this is it. This is what I get paid. This is what I do. This is how we do it. If we don't maintain this, then we lose this, and that causes this, right? And once they get that understanding, there's a barrier taken down. And again, you're not inviting them over to the house, but they feel closer to the source, and they start to understand what you have to do as an owner.
Yeah, 100%, Richard. People like to do something that's worthwhile. They like to know that what they're doing is meaningful. They like to be valued and respected. They like to know that what they're doing, the effort they're making is appreciated and they're making a difference. So having said that, employees crave good, strong leadership. Now, as you say, that's not being a mate or being their friend and inviting them around the home. Leadership is setting direction, setting the vision of what they need to do, and then clearing the path so they can do it and removing all the blockages and barriers. And even leaders crave good leadership because they want to know what's the scope of what's expected of me. Tell me what's expected of me and I'll go and do it. Don't interfere unless I'm having trouble or if there's for some reason that I'm not doing it right. But train me, let me get on with it. And then create the environment where I can come to you with problems or issues or ideas of how to do things better. But yet it's about paving the way and getting out of the way and not micromanaging and telling people what to do all the time, which is what a lot of first timers think of when they think of leadership. They think it's telling people what to do and bossing them around. That's their ego getting in the way.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like anything. Everyone's got their way or their perception and all this kind of stuff. They've been trained, not trained. Someone says he's a good leader, and then you ask him why, and they give you, I don't know, he buys us beers at the end of the day. I mean, it's like, you don't, there's no real definition. It's a big trend right now, leadership training. You'll see it if you're in the podcast world and this, right? It's just, and it gets to the point where it's so like esoteric. It's like, come on, I call it AT. You're all talk. I need some action. Okay, give me some action. Like, I need real implementable things to do that make a difference. Like, truly train a leader. I can't talk philosophy. Okay, let's get into action. I'm a big action guy. I know there's some thought process to this. They got to think some critical thought processes and things. But for the most part, give me the do's. Give me the things to do. And I think that was kind of missing. But boy, they jumped on the bandwagon with the leadership stuff. I don't know if you're noticing that, Daryl, but wow, I see a lot of it.
Leadership has been one of those trending management, I guess, topics for many years. Why? Because it's intangible. It's cultural. It's you can't easily put your finger on it. It's a bit of black magic. And you can teach someone maths and there's right and wrong and it's easy and you know if it's right or wrong and it's clear and there's no question about it. With leadership, it's a bit touchy-feely. It's a bit, and and a lot of people struggle with it because it's not tangible. It's inspirational. It's connecting at a human level.
Yeah, those are good points. It's just, I just see it like, I guess I'm probably more on that logic side, that doing, like, what can we actually give me to implement? And there's people who have there's great leadership training out there. I'm not, poo-pooing all leadership training, but you have to blend actionable things. Okay. If you're just reading to read and going through ideas and things like that, it doesn't seem to, I don't get the pride. Now I have to take it and make it applicable, right? Which isn't the end of the world. I can do that. I'm a good trainer. I'm good at that stuff. But, if I'm paying for the course, so to speak, give me some real steps.
You got to turn the theory or the academic into actual and applicable and meaningful work for me to take to my business, take to my job, take to my task, and apply it straight away. If I can start practicing it straight away, I'll learn, I'll get the results and I'll see the change results straight away. And then I can keep going on and building that new habit rather than falling back. And while we're talking about training, I think one of the things that I've seen works around training is you do your training and then you have top-ups every 3 or 6 months for a year or two, just to make sure that those new habits are building and sticking. And I don't know about you, but whenever I learn something, I'll learn it, I'll do the academic bit, I'll learn it, and then I'll think I understand it. And as soon as I start applying it, I'll go, well, and you start learning a whole lot of new stuff. So if I had a catch up, when I have a catch up with the learner or the coach or the mentor or whatever it is, 3 months later, I've got a whole lot of new questions I want to ask, born from actually trying to do this in real life, action it, and while it's fresh in my mind, I've got to have that follow up while it's fresh in my mind. Otherwise, I'll just fall back into my old way of doing things because the new way didn't work.
Yeah, and I think on the jump to the trainer who's doing the catch up, I hope you're taking notes on these because he shouldn't, so maybe the next go around, no one's going to have the questions because you can pre-answer them. That everyone's running into the same problem, because we didn't teach it properly, right? It could be that too. So yeah, it gets into it. I think I really like the aspect of taking them through, like you said, that training process. And it's the old saying, no battle plan ever survives the first shot. Right?
Yeah, I like the Mike Tyson version.
Well, me too. Because
everyone's got a plan so they get punched in the face.
Yes, because you see this nose, you see this face. This has been punched, brother. Okay, I have an even better saying. I'm going to one up old Mike Tyson there. Everyone should, on some occasion, taste their own blood spilt by others. That's mine. That's a Richard Walsh quote. I can take full credit for that, and I like that.
Lead with the chin.
That's right. But I'm happy to, if you want to find out. Quick side note, putting together this security team at our church, and everyone, male, female, everyone wants to do security, right? Till they got to do security. Okay. So my first question was, I go, okay, can I just show of hands who's been punched in the face? Me and one other person who happened to be another Marine. Okay. So I'm like, okay, so y'all think you're all that and a bag of chips. Okay. Trust me, you'll not know what to do in the first punch. You'll be cowered in the corner. Okay, you're going to crumble like a small child. All right. I said nothing. So let's, I'm not coming to punch you in the face, but I'm just saying, in your mind, you think everything's going to go this way.
In we've reality, watched the action movies. We know what we're going to do and how we're going to throw them into the wall.
Exactly. I'm going to toss you right off the top of the building. No problem. But yeah, it's, but it's just, that's for me, business. That's why I'm the whole sharpen the spear thing, right? The whole warrior mentality, man. We're honing entrepreneurial warriors on the battlefield of business. That's what it is. And there's constant adaptation.
And continually getting better is what I take from sharpen the spear. You're getting better. When you've got the downtimes, you're taking the time to prepare so that next time you do it, you'll be better prepared. You get better results and you're learning from the past.
That's it. That's what it's all about. It's so many, tons of great takeaways. This has been incredible. As I knew it would, that's why I had you on, because I got to test fly this back on your show. So it's all good. We talked about some different stuff, but this is new and fresh, and really excited for what you're doing now here and in the future with this valuation stuff and that focus. This is really good. And I just want to encourage listeners, if you're in business now, this is Daryl's thing. Okay. This is his expertise. Been doing it a long time. You may want to engage with Daryl, okay, to get this going and maybe help right that ship you're in right now with your business and really start making it something that someone's going to want to buy. Because I'm telling you, it doesn't do any good to work 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years and get nothing for it. I'm being harsh, but they're going to move on to the business that, it happens all the time. Well, 4 out of 5 times it happens, right? So it's it's real. So I just want to encourage them. So that being said, Daryl, how do people get in touch with you, follow you? You know the drill. What do they need?
Yeah. So I guess the best way to get in touch with me is you see my name on the screen. There's only one of me in the planet, so I'm pretty easy to find. LinkedIn's normally the best place. I spend my time on LinkedIn. I share current thoughts, like some of the things we've been talking about today. I post about that sort of stuff. So look me up on LinkedIn. That's the best way. We'll start a conversation, and if I can help you, great. If not, if I can point you in the right direction to other people like Richard, no problem. Happy to do that as well.
That's awesome. So maybe we should nickname you Unicorn, since there's only one of you.
I don't know about that.
You're that unicorn that we've been looking for all our lives. He's
Unicorns
here on my show.
Don't exist. I'm here. I'm real.
Shattered. Shit. Everything is. I'm not publishing this. It's not happening. I thought I had a unicorn, but I don't. But it's all good. So, but Daryl, again, thanks for the time today. All the wisdom. Really, really good stuff. Really unique. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me and, of course, to my listeners as well. So, yeah, let's just keep moving forward, doing what you do. I love it.
Brilliant, Richard. Thanks for having me. I've really enjoyed sharing a few ideas with you, all about my exit insights.
Yes, so many good things. And for everybody else, we'll see you on the next STS podcast.
And don't forget, revenue feeds the ego, profit feeds the family. So if you want to see how I can show you at least $100,000 in hidden annual profits in less than 3 minutes, and not only show you where, but how to create that 100K in 6 months or less without additional advertising or marketing spend, guaranteed, just go to sharpenthespiritcoaching.com. See how truly simple it is. That's sharpenthespiritcoaching.com. Do it now.